Hey, it's Shapes, and welcome to another edition of AniTube Digest. We're going with the best and not so best anime YouTube videos to come out the past 2 weeks, from the 19th of March to the 1st of April. Happy Fool's Day. We're going to start with a reaction video. I found an AMV by Janken, which I am subscribed to, so I guess I saw this in my subs. But it's a Russian, I guess. But it was Nobody's Boy Remy on the cover. I'm like, Nobody's Boy Remy AMV? Ayo. Like, hell yeah, I'm gonna check that out. All right, let's check that out. I really like the sync. It's very, the pace of the edits are great. It seems to be doing a summary thing. Really just taking episode 1. Which is fair. Episode 1's amazing. I like the vibes. I really do. This feels so fitting. Remy's French. It's not even Russian, but it's like so tonally perfect. Ooh, great sync. Great sync. I'm loving this, really. Oh, I loved that. Oh, that was great. That was so simplistic and like exactly the like it's short, but it's like exactly the kind of the tone of it with what you're depicting in Remy. Didn't even very adequate scale. Like the story of Remy is very big, so not even touching Vidalas and everything that Remy goes through. Just this focus honing in on this initial family dynamic. Really smart. Yeah, he was very clean with the cuts and just the choices, but a nice balance of atmosphere plus subject matter. It didn't feel like it was feeling pained or inclined to tell the whole story or anything like that. Yeah, this was really lovely. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember Remy being in this quality. Like, this is really nice HD quality. I guess it was just because back when I watched it like years ago, subbed, and it was in whatever quality. It was like good enough quality, I guess. But it looks gorgeous, honestly. Yeah, wow. Big fan of this AMV. Really well done. Happy I watched it. Last minute decision. I'm bringing back a new category, which was really stupid. But this is just how I feel. I can't bring myself to do it, to give it a not good. But I'm gonna bring back disappointed. It might be a different font because it's been that long since I can't even think of the last time I did this. But I gotta give to this the North Star video by Bonsai Pop. I see hour 20, and I know it's a summary video, and I'm at peace with that. I'm at peace. I'm okay. It's okay. But truly, you can't summarize Fist of the North Star in 80 minutes. Not without. We're gonna gloss over this part. We're gonna gloss over this. We're gonna gloss over that. We're gonna gloss over that. And it just trivializes a lot of parts of the story. I think if it was, but I don't know what would have been easier, really, because it takes a lot of work to doing this, and Mike records for a long time. He had to do 3 sessions, and you could tell in the second recording, especially, that I don't know how much of it was ad-libbing or whatever, but he feels very fickle and kind of done with what he's doing. He's not very, I don't know, it didn't have this it didn't come off like you actually liked the story, which you say at the end that you enjoy it, especially up to Rao, which is where most people stop, which is fine. Yeah, the tone didn't match with your ultimate message. It was like, this is great, very influential. I feel like your previous videos did a better job with this, where they articulated they may have given a couple of here's some scenes and some setup to explain what this is and why it's so good, but you actually talked about what's great, and you mentioned in this that the art is great and it's going to have some good themes. And I like that. My favorite parts of this video is when you do take a pause in the summary to be like, this was great, that's a great moment, like Ray's death going into the house. that's a great moment. It's like I appreciated that. I'm not trying. And like at one point, it's like I come off as sarcastic of a type, but I'm not. And but I guess I'm a sensitive baby, especially with with series I really love. I was gonna make a fist video in February, but it fell through because I had a certain idea for it and it wasn't going to work, so I couldn't do it. But yeah, I think in summarizing it like this, especially in the rushed way that you do cover certain chunks of it, and I get other chunks like make sense, but like, yeah, you got me. I'm a Fist of the North Star 2 enjoyer. Okay, you got me. We are a we are persecuted. we are a minority. I understand. But like, man, the video made it come off like there isn't an arc between end of Rao and the stuff with Hyo and Kaio, and like across the sea, and you make such a big point that the sea's not supposed to exist based on one panel. I don't know, like the panel summary at the beginning, and a lot of this for me. It was hard for me to like parse of like, am I disagreeing with this or misremembering because I'm anime only? I'm anime only for Fist of the North Star, and I don't know if they changed anything. I haven't looked into that adaptation process at all, actually. I mean, obviously there's some like, they didn't, there's more white blood than red blood. I'll just say that, of course. And a lot of the anime original is pretty much all I've heard, but like, especially nowadays, like the past year or two, where you were able to read Fist of the North Star in a very good quality, because a lot of us, that was not really a reality. The scan quality for a very, very long time was unacceptable, from what I understand and what I've partially tried of vague remembering in like 2015 or 16 or something. But yeah, it was just disappointing with its aspects that I love, and that's the case with any fucking anime YouTube video about stuff, like, you didn't talk about the part I liked or what. Like, sure, yeah, whatever. And I guess that's not a big thing, but I guess the way that you gloss over it so much, or certain aspects, I guess, and like Yuta coming off as like the whole Yuta part being like, this is just filler and just to give Rei something. Like, yes, what's wrong with that? When like, I don't know. It like, there's Rokuseiken, and when you're mapping the whole story out, they're like, okay, we have plans for all of these characters. We don't really have a plan, so we have to filling it with something, I guess. I don't know, but like I actually remember the Yuta stuff from my watch way more than a lot of the Rao and Toki things, like the fake Toki. I actually completely forgot about fake Toki. Completely. And then you spend a lot of time on that. And I was like, wow. Anyway, sorry, I cut there. I forgot I work out at this time. And anyway, yeah, I think with the summary was sound and the editing is sound, although it's like there was one part where you were talking about like the incest, and you do explain it later, but that I'm not like a super fan of Fist of the North Star or anything. So like when you were like, well, that doesn't make, like, in terms of the successor stuff and the retconning and everything, that might be a retcon, but honestly, it's been a while. But I just watched 2 like this past, like the end of last year, and I could be making something up, but I think the anime changed it so that like Kenshiro is not a direct ancestor, so there isn't a contradiction. I have no idea. I haven't looked very deeply in it, but I'm not like in a huge press position to like counter argue or something. It's like, yeah, that might be right. You might be right. But it was just this, to me. It's like I don't know why it needed to be such a long video for pretty much just summarizing it, when I feel, or because is that somehow easier to produce than just kind of talking generally like how you used to? Not really like your old videos are better. I guess I'm saying that. But like, I don't know. I was surprised. 'Cause I feel like this could have been more specific and unique, I guess. I don't know, but like, I'm not like, yeah, I'm just a little let down by it, I guess. I knew it was pleasant. I'm not trying to like, uh, it's not bad. It's not like a bad video just because of that. I'm just like within the context of it being that, it stinks that there's a lot of glossing around, and I don't get much out of it, unfortunately. But like, I don't have to get much out of it if I'm already a fan, right? This is for people that's like, I don't know what this Fist of the North Star is. Let me have someone explain it to me. But then it's like, I don't know. Let them find it for themselves. And yeah, I agree though that the ending is garbage. But I have to move on. Yeah. It's hours later. Yeah. Anyway, some videos that I did think were decent. But I will say this first one, it has me a little lukewarm. I'll be honest. It's from CBF, Serial Navelgazer CBF, with the absolute state of localization discourse. And I am one of the 6 or 7 people interviewed, as well as Pause and Select, and of course other people I hadn't heard of personally. But I think a lot of their I think honestly the others' perspectives definitely were giving more speaking out on terms of like how this other side is feeling in terms of anti-localization, or just like the problems with it, which is totally fair and fine to do. I'm a little let down by my appearance or like entry in it, I guess, my participation, because the thing that I feel like I didn't really, I don't know, I just didn't feel like I was fully well represented, I guess. The things that I think it was also just a fault on my end, because I don't think I understood the assignment necessarily, because I remember the questions that CBF asks, but I kind of just went on and he calls it a tirade at one point. I didn't think I was being like belligerent or anything. But like, yeah, I don't feel like I was, it is what it is, like whatever, like I'm not like being like, I wasn't included as much, whatever, but like, it was probably because what I was saying was very like, side from the question he asked, or like, and I feel like the conversation just flowed a different way, and it was not necessarily the video that he was making. Whereas I was coming from the perspective of like, I'll just kind of say my piece and my perspective on it, and then he can kind of use whatever or what he gains from it. Instead, the video is pretty much structured by the questions that he asked all the interviewees. It's not so much, a full diving into it, not even going case by case, really. Just kind of an overlook of it, and then using the interviews as support for that, or to lead to what the conclusions are. It was more of like, and I'm not trying to, you have more journalism background than me, I get, but like, it ended up being more about like, here are each question that I asked and the highlights of what I learned and found, and then interjecting in certain ways. But it felt like because of that structure, it felt like it really, the piece was very and then, where, bits like the LoveCom discourse would be thrown in there. It didn't feel like things were building on top of another in terms of like a journalistic piece where like it starts in one area and you lead an audience through a narrative or through a situation, I guess. It very much felt kind of all over the place. And there was like the history at the beginning, of course, with like the Dragon Man in prison school stuff, and like patches here and there of like, oh, who this person's going off about. I don't even remember the localizer's name, but they were like name dropping them specifically and had like a real ire against them, even in questions that weren't really bringing them up. Like it was about AI, and they still found a way to make it about this localizer and how much they despise them and they shouldn't be working in the industry at all, type of thing. Their opinion to have, like, that's fine, okay. But like, yeah, it felt very scatterbrained in that way. And I can imagine maybe that's with like based on the 4 hours of material that he gathered with all of the interviews combined. But I guess that's it seems then that like he asked the same 7 or 8 questions to each participant instead of it didn't not to like I'm actually with journalists and whatever, but like I guess what I was especially the way you framed it in the video, they're like I'm going to do this journalism thing. To me it felt like a parade of and like a round table discussion, except none of us were talking to each other. Like it was like you're trying to foster the conversation, but not all of us were having a conversation with you, and you're not really like there's no back and forth. There's a little bit here and there, but it feels like you're trying to construct a back and forth with us, and I've not talked to any of these people. It kind of felt like that. I have it indecent really because I think you still are in a good place with this. It doesn't feel like a Rev Says Desu or Dimitri video at all, which I don't engage with whatsoever because I can't deal with that right now mentally. But like, yeah, I think it could have been instead of asking us all the same blanket questions, like bringing each of us into the narrative of the story that you're trying to construct as a journalism thing. And like, what is like ask them specific questions about what you want to talk to them about for, and not just their general perspective, that's what and again, I also put in these because I do think a lot of people that were in this had a lot of genuinely good things to say, and great perspectives, especially the fact that a lot of them were non-English speakers. I think that's a great perspective to have. A lot of the intention and the heart was in a good place. I just felt like the execution was very stumbly and then a lot of points abruptly ended, and kind of awkwardly transitioned to a different subject, instead of building on top of each other or like leading into something. And I can understand if it being very hard to manage or with everything. It was a big albatross, it seemed, at least the way you describe and talk about it. But yeah, congrats on getting that beast out, and I hope it was productive for you and for people who watch it. I guess for me, like, I voiced this as much, and I'm happy this at least made it into the video, that I don't want to speak for my boss, but he tells me a lot. He's the one that my boss is the one that founded Anime News Network, so he spent a long time in this exact discourse, in the anime opinion business is what he called it. And he mentions to me a lot, like, I am so grateful that I'm out of that business, that I'm out, and that I don't have to, it doesn't matter about these shows are good, these aren't, or dubs versus sub or shonen, and the cyclical conversations that we have, to be away from that is very nice. And I'm kind of feeling a similar sentiment. But I get for community, for anime community, especially the people that really like, I love that one person's perspective where like my job, I have this job, I work all day, and then I come on and I'm a moderator of this community. That's my whole thing. And that's awesome. So I can understand that being that person's life and everything. And that's great. I'm just happy I don't have to necessarily do that. That's all, I guess. Because I just, for me, I like being able to enjoy anime like on my own passively. Especially, maybe that's partly why like a lot of the anime I've been watching recently, nobody's talking about. Hardly any people have watched, honestly, and it feels like a very intimate, private experience, like an individual journey. And that's just, I feel like that's how I really like it. I know people get a lot of value out of the discourse and community and watching something week to week, a new thing coming out and everything, or these conversation pieces and stuff like that's totally cool. But yeah, that's just my perspective, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, I appreciated the video, and thank you for inviting me on it. Gigguk's new video, this genre will replace isekai. And I don't even recognize the thumbnail, like the person on the thumb, but I already know exactly the kind of the show he's talking about. Just the I don't know, just the design evokes solo leveling, and it's like, oh yeah, these types of stories, and he clarifies it as regression stories, which I saw Pause tweet about, and I was like, I wonder where that's coming from, and I was like, oh, okay. And I know also Weeb Crew reacted to it. I did not watch that live stream because I knew I was going to talk about it on Digest and wanted to like make it like, oh, I don't have to, you know. But they probably are, you know, going actually point by point and might actually, you know, that'd be so. Check that stream out, of course. But yeah, so what I feel like I'm going to be a broken record with this, but I still want to talk about it because I feel like Gigguk is making kind of a bolder statement here and making like a projection, like a call almost. And it really reminded me that like Gigguk really feels like a tastemaker in the way that he's able to tell that this is the big thing. Isekai is a bit, you know, pretty massive popular thing. Gacha games, big popular massive thing. The way he's talking about various subjects, it feels like he is writing the precise zeitgeist of the community writ large. Maybe not our section of the community, and but like, you know, only a couple of my mutuals were watching Solo Leveling, and we're like, yeah. But it's still very popular, right? So it is something worth noting and engaging with. And I do, and of course, I think the value of this video is certainly like similar to what he did a while ago, where he talked about some of his favorite manga, just as like a general manga style video, which I think I took my Fukumoto video after, or some video. There was, or maybe even my Berserk video. It might have been that early. Oh my gosh. But well, Joe was as well for the Berserk one. But yeah, like that. I still remember that video, and he was recommending Drops of God, Vinland Saga, which hadn't gotten an anime by that point. Oh gosh, yeah. I feel like Inuyashiki may have been in there. I don't remember. It was one of the. It was the Gantz author. It was one of his series, I think. Anyway, yeah. So this felt a lot like that, and I thought that was a great strategy, especially where he realizes that like he can't just kind of recommend a bunch of them or like the ones he was liking or anything, but so much as like give you a opening yourself to the possibility of what it could be besides something like Solo Leveling or Relife or ReZero in a way, or Tokyo Revengers. There's a couple series where like, yeah, it's like that. But this one is very specifically like a lot of them deriving from manhwa specifically, like where Solo Leveling comes from. There's a ton of them have cropped up apparently. So these are like ones kind of coming from there. And at least one of them he mentioned is done. So I'm like, that's cool. That's promising, because I like stories that specifically ones that are coming from light novels or manga or manhwa or whatever that are done. That's promising to me, at least, because it shows it's a complete story. I believe Solo Leveling might be like that. I believe so, because I mean I know Roger's not reacting to it anymore, so I think it's done. Anyway, that's encouraging at least. But yeah, the way he talked about them were serviceable and fine. But it was something else I was noticing, and I did watch the Trash Taste special for their Kendo special and noticed it there as well, very slightly. And maybe this is something new, or like maybe something that he's always been doing. But I've realized that he's very used to like repeating jokes. Like he says the same joke twice or multiple times throughout a video, where he has something on his mind, and he like references it a bunch of times, like just happenstance. What was the one in this one where he just couldn't shut up about? I don't remember. It was just like a couple, like a certain memes or certain like phrases or whatever. He's very repetitive with the humor specific, and I just felt like I noticed that more in this video. Just interesting. But you know, I'm not looking for like some expertly crafted stand-up special or something. And you know, repetition can be funny. But that was just something I was like, "Hey, you said that already." Like, yeah, that, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, but like I didn't think there was anything too egregious about this video or something, because it really is just recommendations of series that don't have much of a platform, and I think that's great for someone like him to. And I feel like I've said that before with his other videos that have done similar things like this. I just like these kinds of videos from him. Yeah, I like the idea, I like the call that this was probably it, but he didn't necessarily go into like why this. He sort of does, where it's like, oh, it's a different flavor. It's a similar thing, but you can kind of, oh, that was like, it was like something about sniffing, where he's like, he was referencing the same picture, the same phrase or whatever. And it could be that's probably very intentional, but I don't know, it just felt a little, it stuck out to me, I guess. Yeah, I like the video though. Yeah. Kenny Lauderdale is back. And at full up front, I can't lie. 250,000 views in a week on an anime that no one's talking about. Boy, is that great. Yeah. Anyway, that's just the audience he's amassed, and I think he knows how to sell this stuff, and he's amassed a good audience, and yeah, it's great. And I just wanted to get that off my chest because I feel like the copium is real for me in this one. But no, yeah, I like this video because it's a Kenny video. I think he still got it, and again, this is the stuff that I like him doing, which is the completely unknown subject, bringing it to a new audience, and diving really really deep. Like one of the things he's really good at is the hype, like really extracting almost to a comical degree every last thing you could possibly find or know about this author or the person behind it, creator wise. Like half the video is just kind of a complete summary, maybe not play by play, but feels mostly just summary of the 2-episode OVA, the 3 specials, the short thing, all those different things. And then the other half of the video is just the author and other things that they've worked on, and really hammering home how like they're the slowest mangaka or the laziest manga or something. Really nice. I feel like he mentioned it where like it's very, I don't know, very repetitive in terms of like the same jokes, similar to kind of Gigguk, I guess, where he has this one idea and he's just saying it over and over. And I think the delivery was fine, but in this one too, and he's had this pretty much the same delivery this whole time, but I've recently more been watching Baseball Doesn't Exist, I believe this is the channel, and that channel has a very similar strategy and delivery where every line feels like a news reporter or some, like from the 50s, like saying everything with the most conviction impossible, and that this person is to exist, and like for 18 minutes. And I'm like, well, yeah, there you go. No wonder I think that's a core to the success, because it does, there's an urgency that you're pulling, but there's no urgency to anything you're talking about. But you're saying it with a conviction and urgency that is pulling people along. Even if you're repeating yourself with the manga author of like the hardly slowest whatever, hardly ever whatever, and then also just like really nitty, like I found this little interview thing, and the small stuff, the very like he did like the art for these wallpapers for Gainax or something, like stuff like that. Just extracting as much as possible and knowing everything you can about this person, which is all very valuable stuff. I can't deny that. I think this is all really great and something that I think should exist for every anime. And I really hope, I really wish. But yeah, I think it's like, I don't know. There's certain jokes, or like calling in a commercial very like matter of factly, because yes, it was made to promote it, but I don't know. I hate seeing things like that. I really, really do. There's, but like a lot of it again is this dry wit and sarcasm, like you could call this lost media if and like it's just really I cringe and roll my eyes really, but it's all effective stuff because I think it's catering exactly to the audience that you've amassed and cultivated, that they'd appreciate. Like, ah, lost media, yeah, like, yeah. You know? And I'm not saying you change anything, like that was bad, or because at the end of the day, it's what you want to make and what you can make too, right? It's sort of like what you can do to the best of your ability, what you have access to, and also just like your motivation to do it, so I'm happy you were able to squeak this video out. I guess I know you're hard on it because of the audio quality, and like the edit, like the video quality, I guess the codec or whatever is not like the sharpest or something. I think people are okay. At least the results I think are speaking for themselves, then I get it. You want to improve. I think you still, it's tough. Because I think in terms of improvement, I think it's like, I've talked about, like, these are videos I don't really like I don't think you're good at making, and these are ones I do think you're good at making, and here are your strengths and stuff. And it's just applying those strengths and looking forward to what you have next. And yeah, I think self-improvement's great in terms of like, I could come better here and there. I wish I was more like that with my videos. I think for me, I'm only like, I'm in a stuck place because every creative choice that I make it doesn't feel like, oh, I can't make that, I'm not good enough, or whatever. It's more like I just submitted an AMV to Anime Boston, and it didn't make it as a finalist, and I'm rationalizing why, and I think it's really just because I'm using like these very strobe-like effects, and I'm like, yeah, that's probably disqualifying, but I don't care. I wanted to do it that way, and I'm saying things like I don't care, and then that cripples it in whatever metric or success it's wanting to do, so it's just for me, it's a refusal to not accept criticism necessarily, I guess, but it's more, I don't know, because I don't do it as regularly. I'm not making like a video week or something. I don't know. Yeah, but they're also just very different. I'm just coping more at this point. Yeah, but I really like the video though, because it just made me more interested in this anime that I had heard of, but it was on my radar, and I'm like, yeah, let's watch that right now. That's what I want out of a lot of YouTube videos, really. Most of them, if not all of them, really. So I can't complain. But I have it indeed just because it's just, I'm not like, wow, it's kind of to my expectations, I guess, if that makes sense. Yeah. This popped up for Joel Haver. I am subscribed to his stuff. I don't watch it too often. I do like his skits a lot, but I think he's mostly doing movies now. He's doing the like a feature film every month. He's crazy. Cool, a good crazy. But he talked about the end of Evangelion, and just and it's framed very nicely. He's a real filmmaker here. He doesn't I think in like a one or two takes. Very like off the cuff kind of thing. I liked it. And it's not like his commentary on it is all that unique or original, because he does just kind of fall directly into like, Ano made this. It's bearing his full soul. It's like, okay, and it's like, yep, you're. But at least he's not. But it's not not derogatory. I don't know what derogatory is not the word, but it keeps coming up to him. It's like, that's what I want to say. Not in a bad way. Like that's, and especially because like, yeah, directors are like filmmakers, directors. That a lot of them, it's their artistic vision. It's them. But it's harder to say that, I think, if you know more about animated films, to where there's so much more of a group effort. And Miyazaki mentioned it, where it's like the kind of anime we're making, you don't make by yourself. You can't. Like, they used to be able to make solo animated projects, like the little shorts back in before the 1950s. But nowadays anime, there's multiple people who are to credit for every frame that you see. You know I mean, you could argue that for film too, but it's yeah. Not to actually or anything, but yeah, like it was just this is what a lot of people end up like falling into when they're talking about End of Eva. It's just Anno, and it's like yeah, like that's cool, it's fine, but okay. But that being said, I really liked his. He didn't really talk so much in like details or plots that he liked. It was just more like how it affected him on an emotional level, and what that meant to him as a fellow filmmaker, which I really liked that perspective. Even his perspective towards the beginning, where he's like, I put it off for so long because you have to watch a whole TV series beforehand, and he generally doesn't like this kind of narrative. He doesn't like narrative television, because he does clarify. He's like, I'm okay with like TV shows that are the one encapsulated episode and that's it, like Seinfeld or something. But in terms of like a narrative where every episode has to have a climax and then have its own thing and then starts over, is the way he described it. I thought it was a very interesting perspective. Definitely not a perspective I agree with, because I think most of my favorite media, if I was to choose my favorite media period all time type of deal, there would be way more series or like serialized stories. Like even if it wasn't a movie, like I don't know, because it's like I feel like the same argument would be like a book, because a book you chapter by chapter, you'd want to have a similar kind of like, here's a starting point, here's a rising action type of thing. You know, it's not like a movie in the same way. Or like video games, like stage 1 through, you know, I don't know, just like it was a weird take, but I'm not like, I think I think it's a refreshing take. I think that's fine. It was just very and it's also like I'm okay with it because he was able to, in this instance, he's like, I really want to give this movie a shot. Let's do it the proper way. He didn't just, I hate narrative television, I'm just going to watch End of Eva. It wasn't that. So I'm like, okay, you know, even if he liked the movie, I would have been like, yeah. Because it's an uninformed opinion. You know what I mean? It's like, I do you know, I have not played any Final Fantasy VII at all. And I hear a lot of great things about the remake and Rebirth. And I am also hearing from people, AJ said this, that you do lose a lot if you have not played the original game. It's not a remake in the traditional sense. And that's something, so I'm seeing that as an informed viewer, and like now that I know that, I'm ideally going to respect that. If I ever do want to experience Final Fantasy VII in any capacity, I want to play the original game, despite this being this flashy, you know, fancy, whatever. And then, like experience it the way other people have experienced it, and type of deal. Anyway, but I liked his perspective. It's certainly not something you hear for like a YouTuber like him to talk about anime like this. It's a rare opportunity, so I enjoyed it. Yeah, it was nice. I am pretty sure this is the first time I'm talking about an OG. RCAnime here. I was contemplating doing the voice from back in the day. If you know, you know. But full respect, because I am happy that they're back. Because it's just encouraging to see, I guess, that they seem to be doing okay. They got a new channel, back to doing it, and I really like this free run video. And I tell you, like, I'm really avoiding a lot of free run videos because I'm just like, I'll get to it at some point. But I can't miss out on an RCAnime video. Are you kidding? Like a Return of the King, like, you know. Not that I had like a super like this is one of my favorite YouTubers or something, but I just remember him from back. It's like, yeah, you know, we support our boys that were there with us back in the day, you know. If Demo D put out another video, we respect that. You know, we have no choice but to watch. But yeah, anyway, this, and I also just appreciate it because, you know, it's a holistic free run video. The whole season is out now, which is, you know, it's one thing. There's a manga, and but this he does kind of hide it in the title and thumb, which I appreciated. little tease, but he does give it away like first 10 seconds. He's talking about the Lord of the Rings and what it matches to Frieren, and I love Lord of the Rings, and I think the way that he talked about it and related it to Frieren, and then really constructively talked about Frieren in a comprehensive way that doesn't like this. The summary that he's required to do feels fresh. It doesn't feel like he's this like telling the course of the story really. As someone who hasn't experienced Frieren, I really appreciated the way he covered this anime, because I feel like it's an easy trap for. I mean, I'm making a generalization really, because like I said, I didn't watch a ton of Frieren videos, but I do think there's a trap with seasonal anime discussion where you talk about it assuming that the person knows what you're talking about or has already seen it. I've probably fallen into that trap a number of times, not necessarily talking about seasonal stuff, but I do try to the stuff that I talk about, I usually assume that it's fans who have already seen it, having watched it, and that kicks me in the ass sometimes, I guess. But yeah, I appreciated it from that perspective, and it felt very fresh, or just like, oh, that's what it's about. Like it didn't feel like I don't know. It just felt very informed and mature, and again, the connections with Lord of the Rings were really good. It's not super like going out and or extending and making grand statements or anything. I think he does mention that he does cover that like isekai is kind of a self-referential and circular, and all of them are acting the same or deriving from within, which I think is a similar point that Ano or Miyazaki, one of those two, was talking about anime writ large, does that, is the database, and how they're really the people who are making anime are only watching other anime instead of outside of that. I think that's an extended point. That was like that stuff at the beginning, but it didn't blossom in anything major or overarching like that necessarily to really boost it up or something. But yeah, I did really like it though, and I'm happy to see him back. And the video was clean in terms of its editing and everything. I think that he was using pretty exciting clips constantly, and relevant clips, and yeah, it was just like, this is nice. Yeah, I liked it a lot. And we watch anime. Anime versus content. Like the idea that why good anime is really hard to make. So I watched this video twice, because not like earlier, but I watched Watch for Digest today, and I was like, that was good. And it was like, I felt like it was just a general discussion video that felt like something that Trixie would have written on like Substack, or like on the blog that she has. I've liked reading those on occasion, but it just feels very like train of thought, stream of like kind of what's in her mind right now, I guess, of like what she's been thinking of. But then I was like, as I watched more videos and then went back to reevaluate, I'm like, okay, what am I going to say about this thing? I was like, I actually can't put in my mind precisely what she said or what point she was driving towards. It wasn't, and so that's why I watched it again. And even now, again, especially because I watched it and then I started recording and then I had to go away for 2 hours and come back. So it's still hazy again. And I guess but I really think it's because she's touching on so many different ideas and points in a sequential manner, but not in a way that's building each other up necessarily. I think it's like one thing is leading to a next. They're all linked. Like I think the one moment like that sticks with me is just like this thing makes a lot of money, or like the Patreon, like when I have my Patreon, it dips when I don't talk about anime content specifically. And then she said, money doesn't make sense. And I'm like, I can see where that point is coming from based on the previous sentence, but that's a whole different point. It feels like you've started a whole new paragraph. But it does that like every 3 sentences, it feels like, almost. But I like these kinds of videos because it's a rumination type of thing. Visually, you don't really know what you're going to get. I wasn't familiar with Power of Money and Control, but like I know the poster, and then when you're talking about money and you're like seeing that, I'm like, oh, okay. But it did feel like the title is really like a classic Trixie edgy bro title that like it reminds me obviously the at Pepsi one of the Tiger Bunny thumbnail of like why good anime is hard to make or something. I actually think it was really hard to make. It kind of you're leaning into that, I think. I don't know, just the that classic ethos basically but then like the real meat of like calling something anime versus calling something content isn't really directly addressed. It's more of like ruminating on the nature of anime, that we don't really deserve it based on how much work gets put into it and the money that comes back and all the money that gets fed into it. It's really just like the ruminating on that conceit of like how hard it is to make and how that lines up with reality and popular and how people make money and stuff like that, and how it sustains itself, becomes a business, and everything. Yeah, it was just nice rumination, but it's hard. I feel like it's a lot like your recent stuff. Not recent's hard because we've forgotten love and all those, a lot of the similar videos that I think are some of your best content in like a feeling way, and like that was great. I'm happy I watched that, but it slips out of my mind really, really quick. A lot of them do, and I feel like that might translate into some of the in the way I've talked about some of the videos on Digest, that I know I walk away from them enjoying them, but I don't necessarily like. It doesn't last. It doesn't stick with me, and I don't know what that is the case. Why? It might just be a me thing, obviously. But like I remember these videos, and then I'm like, oh, what was it about? You know, and I can't point to a thing like that's what it is. You do this better, or you know, whatever. Is what it is. Yeah, but I encourage you to keep making them, really, because I think they're really cool, and I get value from them. Yes, I enjoy them. All right, I thought were the best videos of the week. I was like, yeah, oh, thank God, the success. Or I don't know. Not that the others I was like, oh, this could not exist. I could do without these. Not like that. I'm sorry. No, just they stood out to me. And I was just like, no, yeah, this one, I really, yeah. But first was from BaronJ. This was a surprise because he was obviously doing this Takobon thing, and then he just suddenly put this out, and it on April Fool's Day. I'm not gonna lie, it's a little like. But then I saw that the first tweet I had seen. I was checking Twitter and watching Digest more than like my feed or whatever, so I didn't see it directly on my feed at first. What I first saw was like within the first hour or whatever he had he posted that it was like a 1 out of 10. And I was like, I miss that feeling. I'm sorry. No. I'm sorry. I'm so like self-deprecating these days. God, I'm so insufferable. But I was just happy for him about that, and I was like, oh, what? And yeah, this was completely left field for me to see, because yeah, he was really doing a lot more experimentation, finding his footing, and was just kind of setting apart from what he had a bread and butter thing for a long time, and this wasn't quite that, because he doesn't have like the black and white intro or anything like that. But it really was just him coming across, finally getting around to this blind spot that he had about Ghost in the Shell's movie, and he's like, I'm gonna do something different. I'm gonna give the verdict right away. And I was reflecting on my own when I'm making my video currently. I'm like, I can't say in the beginning of the video what the result is, because people will click off, and I need to drag them through it in order to find out. I can't just give it away at the end of the video, or you can, or you just could, and I think the value, because you set the tone right about like you give no reservations about how you feel about this movie, and that colors the rest of the video, and that's what actually pulls you through it, and then it's just an enjoyable experience. Yeah, so that's just me being a cynical, like, you trying to be a okay YouTuber at it, I guess. Like, conventional wisdom says, whatever. But yeah, so this, yeah, I really like the points that you make and the delivery and the cleanness of the footage, where like you're showing footage that, like, for the most part, doesn't often get used, or scenes that don't necessarily get covered that often, because this movie's been talked about a lot, right? But then there's the classic shots, like, I gotta use that shot, I gotta use this shot and that shot. But it felt like watching the video, it felt like watching the movie in a fresh light, basically, because you were using clips that were like very original, I guess, if that's the word. And the points you were making were original, I thought. And like that how they were broken down, and yeah, just the tone of this, I just got really really good vibes. I just felt like, especially coming from you, who's been in the game for a long time, making something very throwback classic. Like, this is definitely something that would be made in like 2015, 16 or so, maybe. And not to be like, oh, you know, I don't know if you take that different way, but I really welcome that. I really missed that. I really did. It was just like watching it, I was just like, I really missed this. Not necessarily like, I'm not saying like, oh, I miss when you made these, because again, I feel like this was a much, like, this is you after a while. Like, yeah, you still like cracking a joke here and there, but I don't know, there was, you hit a different note in this one that I was just like, yeah. I just really, really liked it, and I hope that I really hope you enjoy making it, because I would love to see you make more stuff like this. Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah, I really, really, really liked it. I'm catching up to Lee Cree's 2-part series on working on Jujutsu Kaisen, 24 frames a day, I believe. Yeah, it seems is the moniker that this series is going on, and she wants to. She says at the end of the video that she wants to kind of give a positive impression, like a contrasting example, because they're like, no, the anime industry is not all this, guys, I swear. But wanting to talk about her experience on Thousand Year Blood War, I think, which is fantastic, and I'm looking forward to that, because again, I think her insights are very, very valuable. I feel like I might be a broken record talking about this video a bit, because she covers a lot of it in the Yeman podcast that I talked about, I think last digest, if not the digest before, but definitely I think it was last digest. So and obviously that's because she goes through the experience and saying all this stuff as it's happening to her, and then the Yeman podcast is sort of like coloring, like, since that has all happened. So she does kind of give away a lot of points that are in this video that were in that podcast as well. On top of more of it, because, you know, more of like an outside perspective of like the reception of the last video and things like that. So I guess the real value of this video, besides the information, which again I felt was redundant, but still makes sense to put it in this video. That's fine. I don't want to like take that away or anything. But I think my favorite part of the video is when the episode gets brought back to her, and she kind of goes through there. Here's the 6 shots that I did, and my additions, like what the storyboard said was this. I added this, and the result is this. It's like, oh, they took out some of the shadows here. That's disappointing. Or like, and seeing those reactions from an animator being like, I can understand from this perspective why animators who worked on that crazy episode, whatever, I forget, I don't know, I haven't seen JJK yet. I can understand the animators who were like, I'm pretty let down by this, because this is what I'm intending, and this is what was given based on the deadline they were able to, and this is how they reduce the work so that the in-betweeners, colorers, and everything else are able to work on, to deal with it. Like, they know, like, passable. Like, it was like, this is acceptable for broadcast kind of deal, and reducing it. And not, and seeing what makes it in and what doesn't make it in is very interesting, from an animator's perspective. And you will almost never, ever, ever get that, I'm surprised, I guess. I wish there was more of that besides I did this cut. And more like, yeah, I was going for this, and the storyboard actually mentioned this, and this is what I contributed to it. So like, and that was accepted. You know what I mean? Because there's one thing of like the episode director giving, and she even mentions here is like, oh, the episode director gave great notes, and this is what they said, or whatever. And so you can, and in this context, you're like, oh, that's what the episode director contributed versus what the animator contributed, and the episode director just said yes to. Because, yeah, again, anime is a very collaborative medium. And so when you're crediting an episode director for something or an animation director for something, when a certain motion or movement was actually the idea of the animator themselves, you'll never hear or know that otherwise or hear that perspective unless the animator comes out and says it. So yeah, for that reason, even if they're very minor things, this was very, very valuable, especially just like how big the first one got, and I hope this one gets similar success, of course. And I'm looking forward to more. This is really, really good stuff. YouTube Raugo recommended this to me. I'm not a stalker, I swear. But I checked out this Totally Not Mark interview from Getting There with Amy Claire, and I was thinking like, oh, I can go get my groceries while I listen to this, but I didn't want to do my data, so I'm like, is it on Spotify? And this podcast is on Spotify, but just the first season, I think, because I checked out her channel and there's like a season 2 announcement, and these are like the season 2 interviews, and then season 1 is all on Spotify. I assume that's what that's referring to. I'm like, okay, it is what it is. Okay. But it seemed, I didn't look too deep into her whole thing and like what the approach is, but I obviously just kind of went off based on the content. And Mark hardly talks about the material on the channel itself, really just like his job, and very brutally honest thoughts, I think, of his perspective, of his own self-inadequacy, his self-esteem, and the pressure he has, and is like a lot of people hate their job, something he says. And I take kind of like a knee-jerk reaction almost, because I still do this for fun mostly, or just for my own interest or motives, I guess. I can't believe I had to walk back fun, because I get it, but it's brutal. But like, yeah, in that perspective. But the real whole of the podcast is not like his whole life per se, but she seemed to prepare in advance, or she seems to do what the Anthony Padilla does, where they do like a pre-interview, where she's kind of picking his brain a bit and deciding the questions based on that pre-interview of like, what should we talk about, what's on this person's mind, what would be interesting, or what am I curious about, right? So she kind of teed up these questions about his decision to not become a pro wrestler, or his decision to lose 60 pounds, or his love life, and talking more about the Your Name thing, or his career path, his whole adult life, basically, of what that's led to. And as someone who's led an adult life, yeah, 29, I'm a little younger, but yeah, is similar to as like, I like reflecting like in those terms of like, and then I did this, and then this happened, this was a big decision in my life, and then this happened, and stuff like that, or the psychology behind all of it. That was just completely refreshing and unexpected. And obviously, I've voiced this before, that like, I'm interested in a lot of YouTubers to do something like this, like just learning more about them as people, because the more I think I understand a person as a person, the more I can appreciate what they do. It's similar to anime directors learning more about Osamu Dezaki and what his life was like, and even just basic things like his likes and dislikes, like little things like that, and seeing and hearing more from him directly makes me appreciate his direction in his shows a lot more. or just learning, knowing more about Yoshiyuki Tomino, what makes him click, or Rintaro, or Miyazaki, obviously. It colors the work in a way that like you appreciate it a lot more, or you see where they're coming from, I guess. Yeah, and so like it's very, I think it's in a similar fashion with Mark, where I probably see his videos in a new light, or in a more elevated perspective, and not just from as a casual passive viewer, I guess, as someone that feels informed, not just of the content he's talking about, like, oh, this thing about Dragon Ball is wrong or something, which could still happen and still exist, sure. And I don't expect him to be wrong about Dragon Ball, because he's one of the top YouTubers in that space, and just setting so many records and really like guiding the conversation in such a constructive, positive direction. But yeah, it becomes more than that now, and not like in a I don't think it's a parasocial sort of thing. I think it's more of like I see him as an individual, and not that has insecurities, that has regrets, that has a perspective, a voice, and not just like, here's why I think this show is pretty good. I love hearing it. Was really reaffirm even more why I love learning so much about these people, these YouTube creators, as real people, and not simply like, this is a cool anime, in that sort of way. As much as I like hearing that, and that's really what I'm there for, ultimately, at the end of the day. Yeah, but but again, like, props to Mark for being so open and vulnerable in an interview like this, and props to Amy for setting up these questions and guiding the conversation in this direction, having good banter with Mark, and I just find it really encouraging. Yeah, this was very nice. And I think I'm gonna give best video of the week for me to Funyarinpa Foundation. Should have practiced it. Oh well. But I'm gonna keep this taken, I guess. That's what I do. Definitely the first time I'm talking about this channel. I'm pretty sure. I always have to caveat it that way, don't I? Every single damn time. Yeah, no, yeah, totally. Because he's just mostly doing like Let's Plays, I guess. I'm just scrolling through. I'm like, these are Let's Plays. I'm like, yeah, okay. And I only say that because it's like, you don't normally see a video essay like this, like a very good video essay, come from a episode 6, and all these things. And not to narc on it, right? This is a variety channel. Anyway, sorry. That's kind of a dick. You know your shit. That's all I care about. Like when you're screen capping from Petsu-chan, I know you're in the right place. Like, yeah, okay, yeah, we're all right. And then I think he has Mercury Falcon voicing a line, like a really cringy forum post. Man, those fucking forum posts. Definitely what I think that was giving me best video of the week for me is just the total assassination, like roast. Not like it was a roastness. I don't know. It was just the going after this community that are clearly harnessing a bit of misinformation for an agenda. I think you specifically call it that. And calling that out, Claire setting the record straight. Also just, pointing to the people that are actually where this is actually coming from, and not just be like, I'm right. You do say you're right at the end. But like really giving credit to that Smogan guy, and Dr. Lava, I think is his name. I don't remember. But just like you felt you weren't just like informed in your own way and demonstrating that yourself. You were also showing like I'm not just like a genius or something. Like this is where you get this information. Very generously, I suppose. But yeah, like the tackling of this myth that I really didn't even know about, to be honest with you. I wasn't familiar with, because I never really thought about it with like that it would be such a controversy to swap Misty out for May and everything. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's because I grew up with it. and just like that's what they did. Like, okay, that's just what you do in a new region. But then like, isn't it weird they didn't do that for Johto? It was like, well, it's one season, and I don't know. But yeah, and this pitting of Team Rocket versus get rid of Team Rocket or get rid of Misty, and he chooses Misty because he doesn't like Misty. No, that's really dumb. No, it's really, really dumb. Yeah. It's really funny, like, even when you say it and knowing with like, no, it really is just like, do we take out the carrot? Do we want to freshen the show up with just because a new threat? That's just what you do in TV shows. Or you just do that. New companion character, new villain, whatever. And do we remove Team Rocket? Or do we remove this other one? And what was working in the show? And Shudo attests to his own inability to be like, yeah, she really is just kind of an ordinary girl at the end that doesn't have her own arc or anything. I was about to really, yeah, like, it's one thing where I'm like, haha, I am above those poke shippers of the Misty fans and the May fan and whatever. But I'm also an Amore shipper. Like, I'm sorry. But I was like, oh, a girl character without a character arc couldn't be my MC. It couldn't be my... couldn't be my girl. Best girl. But, yeah, like... So that was funny. But yeah, just taking that down. But, like... Really, just the thing that I love about what I think the best things anime YouTube videos can do is inform us more about the staff that work on these shows. And learning more about Takeshi Shudo, who he is, what he's worked on, his perspective, and very specific perspective. Like, really, like, in this scene, in this movie or whatever, hearing about all that and their perspective on it, where it's like, yeah, I did that because she didn't have a thing to do in the movie. She didn't have a character arc. And I feel like as a writer who cares about these characters, he's like, he seems to really care about Misty. And he's like, I couldn't figure out within the confines of what the show is providing to me. Because he didn't create the scenarios. Or like, oh, he's going to go to gyms or something like that. They give him, he meets this character, he does this, he meets this Pokemon. Go. So I can understand, not without that full creative control, that he wouldn't be able to give a full character arc to Misty in a way that like fits, like, I think there's, he can characterize her and make her an appealing character, and I think he did succeed in that. People are still cosplaying her to this day. Not that that's an indicative of everything, but she's still an endearing character. They brought her back. No one disliked her. I don't. Maybe people did. Popular show. But yeah, it was. But I understand his perspective, especially as an Amore shipper, where and it makes sense when you think of the long, like, you watch the evolution of Pokemon, where even just the fact that May gets an arc, like, oh, May does like, what's her thing? She's not just following Ash like Misty was. Oh, she's a contest. She's in doing contests, and Brock's like, oh, what am I here to do or learn? Oh, I'm going to do breeder. I'm going to be a doctor, and really figure that out. And, it's still not his story at the end of the day, but it's still something, right? And there's not just a companion to bounce off of, right? Because it's one thing that, Ash and Pikachu can bounce off each other, but it only goes so far. It has one specific dynamic. Not that it's one-dimensional, but it's just, there's more you can do if you have more characters following in the party, right? Especially when they're different kinds of characters. With one of them's a little more stuck up, or a little more opinionated or scared of things, and you just have more variety. That just makes sense, Rumiko I just thought of this, where I'm like, Rumiko Takahashi probably learned that very early on, and then probably to her detriment, where probably even Oda probably thought of this with One Piece. The idea of making a new character is very exciting, especially a character in a narrative that you can recur. It's not just like an episodic, they go to the town and they're done. There's a character like, oh, I can do more with this person. I can make them scared of this thing and throw them in that situation. or the contrast and how they bounce off this character, and oh, they don't like this, or oh, there's this new thing about them, or put them in this situation. Like, that's just fun to do as a writer, I imagine, especially on such a long-running show like this. But I can understand his Takeshi's perspective. Takeshi Shudo. I don't know. Just call him Takeshi Shudo. I don't call it for other fucking people. Sorry. For Shudo, I can understand his regrets about, like, this stinks that, like, I like this character and I can put them in situations, but there's no overarching thing or more for them to do. And she just kind of becomes an accessory. And, you know, I don't think it's misogynist necessarily, because that can happen to male characters too. Like, Broxton is an accessory. In fact, he gets written out of the show before Misty did with Tracy, and his perspective that Funyarinpa mentions that, like, it was because international broadcasters they were realizing this, like, they probably can't relate to the character with squinty eyes or whatever. And that didn't prove to be true at all, and that's why they brought the character back. It was misguided, and it's a really dumb, it's a dumb reason, but it's like, yeah, that was our reason, and it's just interesting to learn about those sorts of things, especially 'cause it's history, right? It is the metatextual, you know, stories of production, because these productions are stories in themselves. I think that's always very interesting. But this metatextual, like, you know, to be a snob, I don't know, but yeah, like, there's plenty of other characters that can be accessories, and it just so happen, and if it happens to women, that has happened to them far more historically or to character with minority characters. That's happened to them a lot more, even worse. Like, they've had even worse treatment, you know. So I can understand them being a lot more sensitive to that sort of thing, because they're sick and tired of it, and they're realizing it's like, no, this isn't how it has to be, right? But I like that this perspective of the writer, where, like, he knows it doesn't have to be like this, but it just so happens is, like, the output that at that time, and I get that as a creative. I get that where you feel like you have this stretch, this really good run. Like, he was recommended on Pokemon because he can write good women, because of his work on Making Momo. But I can understand his perspective, because that was like a decade ago, and I can imagine his it's like, you were good at this thing, you did all this art, you did all this. I'm relating to a personal experience for me. I did all this art for, like, these boards for my camp. But that was back when I was drawing a lot more, and didn't do video editing at all. And that was just the thing. And I just was refining that and doing more of it and getting better. And I was kind of called upon to do those sorts of things, and I was known to do that. And so I'm kind of known as an artsy guy in that department. But in the years since, I've become more of a video editor, and I've honed my skills in that regard. And when you hone your skills in one area, you don't do it in another. And not to say Shudo necessarily had that precise experience, but I can understand his perspective of, like, I was hired because I was good at this one thing a long time ago, and now I kind of fumbled it. Or at least in his perspective, where he regrets how Missy turned out as a character, how she turned out. Which, like, yeah, I get it. And I'm looking forward to now definitely watching it even more, like, more and more than I'm learning about Pokemon as the anime. The more I'm so excited to watch. I have it. I've already downloaded it. I have it ready. I'm going to be watching it after this current slate of shows that I have going. When one of them finishes, I think it's Ranma is going to finish first. I'm going to start Pokemon. Or we're just watching the original season, and probably watching the Japanese and the English together, just to see a comparison. just a little comparison. Not a huge thing. But yeah, this was so wonderful, and just what I needed. Just what I want. Yeah. Lovely video. Thank you very much for making it. I'm looking forward to whatever you make next. Yeah. Okay, that'll do it for this installment of AniTube Digest. Thank you very much for watching. You guys are great. You have a great week. Or 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks. Yo, peace.